Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and a continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and somehow the entire month of July is almost over. Granted, there's still a little bit left, but we do this on the last Thursday of the month, and that means this week. We're going to go over every single thing that happened in the ecosystem of MiSTer FPGA this month. We got a lot of fun updates on Sega Saturn, Nintendo 64, arcade ports, everything in the mix, including clone PCBs as well. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, down below hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But on June 30th of last month, there was a new core for Sega Saturn that went to update all, and that was after the news episode. So if you haven't updated your MiSTer in a while, there are so many fundamental changes to Sega Saturn on MiSTer FPGA. Hopefully we see a new core soon. Maybe by the time this video airs, there is a new update out, but Sega Saturn's definitely still getting updates, and things are vastly improving. So much so that I've been running some comparisons against emulation and real hardware, which we'll get into in just a moment. But again, a lot of these Sega Saturn cores get updated in the background and don't actually go to update all, they don't get merged in. So getting a brand new merged core into update all at the end of June, beginning of July was great, because I know a lot of you don't actually do unstable nightly builds on your MiSTer FPGA, you just stick to update all. Leave me a comment down below and tell me if you're an update all exclusive user or if you actually go with some of these beta cores, because I would be curious. But this is going to be such a fundamental improvement to the MiSTer FPGA Sega Saturn core. I've been doing a ton of testing on it, a lot of captures, and again, comparisons with both software emulation and real hardware. So far we've run the Die Hard Arcade MedDefend versus MiSTer FPGA comparison. And if you missed that, check the playlist. I will leave a link in the description below if I remember, but 10 out of 10 times I basically always forget that. And it is so impressive to see how good the core is doing against the other leading ways to play Sega Saturn games. It has been so fun to be able to compare these things, and that's how mature the core is getting. We've also done comparisons to real Sega Saturn hardware with Daytona USA, and again, it is spectacular just how close these two sources truly are. As far as the cycle accuracy is concerned, all of these static things that happen in the game, like the countdown to the race starting, are one-to-one frame-to-frame accurate on real hardware and MiSTer. That has been absolutely awesome to see. You get to find out just how good the core truly is doing. So I can't wait to see another update come through on this, but if you're waiting to play Sega Saturn, do not wait whatsoever. It is doing so well on the current core, and again, if you haven't updated update all in a few months, now is the time. Now we're waiting for more details on Taki Udon's MiSTer FPGA clones as well, but he has been showing off more details on the handheld form factor, and I think this is probably what everyone is the most excited about. A handheld MiSTer FPGA a la Analog Pocket, and there is going to be a dock for it as well. He's kind of showing off teases of the form factor and the pricing, coming in around $150, and it's going to have an AMOLED display as well as full-size analog sticks. We still don't have an image of the overall full handheld yet, at least at the time that I record this voiceover, but it will be fun to see that get updated in the future, because it seems like he's getting ready, or already is, mass producing the DE10 clone board, but I think most people are more curious about the handheld as well as some of the consoles. And he did talk about potentially being a 6-button setup with a different faceplate as well, and I talked about in that video how much fun it would be to have 6 face buttons, because as many console cores and handheld cores as there are on MiSTer FPGA, we have stuff like Capcom CPS and CPS2, cores that use 6 buttons, and how nice it is to actually get those on the face. So that is still to be determined, but it is something he is looking at. And there's been so many different design and aesthetic variants shown as well, different colorways for different systems, like the North American Super Nintendo, Virtual Boy here, some Super Famicom stuff out of Japan. So it'll be very interesting to get a new update on these when it is available, because I can't wait to have a handheld MiSTer FPGA. Because as much as I love MiSTer, the entire project, and doing the videos, when I leave the house and maybe want to take something with me, I wish I could take my MiSTer on a plane ride, which I'm going to be doing soon. It's just one of those things. As much as I love Analog Pocket, there are cores on MiSTer that do not exist there, and I can't wait to be able to just travel around and see what's going on. So next time Taki updates, I'll definitely talk about that as well. But he's also shown some of the hub boards and things for the traditional DE10 triple stack build, so that definitely is still something in the pipeline. And when all of these boards are available to purchase, if I don't get review units, I will buy them and review them on the channel, so you all understand what they do and whether or not they're worth it. Now moving over to the Nintendo 64 side of things, we got a patch in the beginning of July for Resident Evil 2, and it's crashing on the core. Now when I talked about this game, I was able to play both campaigns without any freezing before the patch was implemented, but other users were having issues, so RuleSet went in and looked at it and ended up producing a patch that put a 16,000 cycle delay on certain accesses, which completely stopped the entire core from freezing on Resident Evil 2. Now whether you're playing Leon or Claire's campaign, you can play start to finish. The credits will scroll. You can play this just like you're playing on a real Nintendo 64, and that cycle offset is going to be imperceivable to the human eye and ear, so you'll never even know it is happening. And that is awesome. We got so many good games back on the core, and I have done videos on being able to find these files for the patching, as well as how to actually patch them. So if you want to play something like Resident Evil 2, Jet Force Gemini, or Conker's Bad Fur Day on the Nintendo 64 core, patches do exist, and I have done videos teaching you guys how to do that. And this is just so much fun. The amount of games quantity wise that are not working on the core right now is, I believe, 3 or 4, and honestly a few of them aren't even really worth playing in the first place in my opinion. But getting Resident Evil 2 100% playable has been amazing after we got Conker's Bad Fur Day and Jet Force Gemini. So if you want me to take a look at any of the other games that don't work in video form, leave me a comment down below. Obviously Conquer & Conquer is done because I did a lot of research on that. I was about ready to start looking into Jet Force Gemini, but RuleSet came out with a patch before it even had a chance to do any of the work, so that was definitely a time saver for me personally. But it was a lot of fun to go through the entire Conquer & Conquer series and take a look at exactly how the memory addressing and map spacing was going on between real hardware, MiSTer FPGA, and the Ares emulator as well. So I'm definitely going to miss looking at Conquer a little bit, but I'm so glad that everyone can play this game today. So if you haven't grabbed any of these patches, they're over on the MiSTer FPGA Discord on the Nintendo 64 channel under pins. They're also on the MiSTer FPGA forums as well. And if you're not sure how to patch the games, like I said, check the playlist. There will be a patching tutorial in there for all 3 of them. Now moving from console to arcade, Jotego and his team released Moonwalker for the System 18 core, probably the most well known and most popular game on that arcade board. When System 18 came to MiSTer FPGA and we had Shadow Dancer first, people were always asking, when is Moonwalker coming? That's how popular this game is, it's how well known it is, and it's how different it is compared to the Sega Genesis version, which feels in some instances like a completely different game in its entirety. The good thing is Moonwalker is now here on MiSTer FPGA. It's like 95% of the way done, it feels like. There's some issues in the sound, but otherwise the gameplay is complete. You can beat the game, you can enjoy it, you can have fun with it, and that's all that really matters. This is still in beta from Jotego, so you're going to have a Patreon key, but I'm sure in the next 3 to 4 months this core and all of its games will be buttoned up and you'll be able to play it publicly as well. And it's not like the entirety of the System 18 games are done. There's still some games within the actual arcade board that don't yet work on MiSTer FPGA, so I'm assuming over the next couple of months we're going to be getting a lot of System 18 games added to MiSTer, and that is going to be awesome as well. And the fun part is Moonwalker is just such a strange game. It's a ton of fun to play, and if you've never checked it out before, you're going to be very confused as to what's going on unless you've ever actually watched the film. It's probably been 2 decades plus since I checked it out, so even for me, there was a lot of fun just discovering exactly what Moonwalker is doing in the game. So that is awesome, and hopefully in August we get something like Laser Ghost on the System 18 core as well. That is the #1 game that I want to play as far as this board is concerned. Now moving over to another arcade board, Namco System 1, most famously known for having the original Splatterhouse and the first time this game ever played in arcades, is now a public core. So if you're not a Jotego beta member, you can update your MiSTer FPGA and you should have access to all of the System 1 games without needing that Patreon key. And trust me, if you've never played Splatterhouse or the arcade version of it, it should be the first game you stop on when you go to the System 1 section. This is just such an iconic, fun game. It's where I introduced myself to Splatterhouse and fell in love with the series, and it works so well on MiSTer FPGA. It's great to have this as a public core, so now everyone can get in on the fun. But it's not just Splatterhouse on the core. There's a ton of System 1 games. Splatterhouse definitely is my favorite, but there's a lot of fun to be had here. Some horizontal shmups, some vertical shmups, some action platformers. You're getting a good dozen plus games here on the System 1 side of things in the public update core, so that is always great when these games go out to further access. While I do think supporting Jotego and his development via Patreon is worth it, and I definitely do it, if you're not the type of person into that, you can now play the System 1 games. But it's not just System 1 that went public this month, even though this one's probably my favorite of all the cores to go public on MiSTer. We also had some updates on the Neo Geo Pocket side of things, so that is fun to see as well. Now this core is now public as well, the Neo Geo Pocket, but it is just black and white, and we really haven't seen any updates to the overall Pocket core in a while, so hopefully those do come soon. I do enjoy some good Neo Geo Pocket and Neo Geo Pocket Color. There are some hidden gem games on there as well, but now Jotego and his team are going to be doing development in the background while the core is public. So if you've been waiting to test some Neo Geo Pocket games out, you can do that today. The core definitely still is a little bit rough compared to obviously the real hardware, but you can play the majority of the games with no issues. You might see a little bit of graphical corruption here or there, and every once in a while the game may freeze. So I feel like this is like maybe 75% along the way, and obviously Neo Geo Pocket Color isn't implemented in any way, shape, or form, so those games are not going to currently play on the core. But that's not a bad percentage for something that has gone public, but I'm really looking forward to seeing Neo Geo Pocket Color come down the pipeline in the future, because there's an awesome Beast Busters action RPG game on the Pocket Color. I do have that I can play on my Analog Pocket and original Neo Geo Pocket Color hardware, but it's the type of game that I want way more people to play, and I can't wait for that to be more readily available on the MiSTer side of things. But if you've never checked out the Neo Geo Pocket before, definitely start with the fighting games for a black and white screen and a smaller setup compared to the Neo Geo AES. These games are absolutely incredible. They're some of the best mobile fighting games in my opinion from back in the day, so it's definitely something if you've never experienced you need to check out. And the good thing is, as of today, you can check it out on the public core section. Just run update all. Now moving over to the QM Tech clone MiSTer FPGA boards. I may talk about these in the future. I'm waiting to see how they shake out a bit more. I didn't immediately want to order something like this just because I did read some reports that it wasn't 100% compatible with every core, and there have been some issues, and I don't want to show you guys anything that I can't trust just to be able to be a real MiSTer FPGA. That's in no way, shape, or form a knock against QM Tech. I just wait to decide whether or not this is something I want to introduce to the viewers, because when I show you guys hardware, I want to know 100% unequivocally that it's the type of thing I can just tell you to go use and you get the exact same experience. But this board is very curious with the RAM on the bottom soldered in two 64MB packages for a total of 128, which is not how things are normally done on MiSTer FPGA. We usually have the RAM modules. So as more reports come in for this thing, if you want to see me review it, leave me a comment down below and tell me. Right now I'm kind of 50-50 on it because it doesn't feel so much like a clone as it feels like a new ecosystem. There's going to be new USB boards for this, and there's going to be new IO boards as well. So this is basically MiSTer adjacent. Think about IBM PC compatibles back in the day. This is like a MiSTer FPGA compatible, not a clone. It is the same hardware for the most part, doing things slightly differently, and it is compatible with MiSTer FPGA cores, but it doesn't 100% take that clone designation. But that's the news for the month of July. We had Sega Saturn, Nintendo 64, Arcade, as well as handheld, and a couple of clones to talk about. If you have any questions, leave them down below, and if you want to see me buy that QM Tech board and try to review it on the channel, tell me to do that as well. But short of that, July was a fun month, maybe a little slower than June, but still awesome, and I can't wait to see what August brings. But short of that, we are done. Go play some MiSTer FPGA, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.